Hello and welcome to Following on Ashes Inquest. I'm Jon Norman alongside Steve Harmison. You're listening to us on talkSPORT 2 on the talkSPORT app or DAB radio, or you're watching us on the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel. Hit subscribe if you're doing so. This will also be made available on the Following on podcast feed. Steve Harmison, you're alongside me as I battle with my earpiece here in talkSPORT Towers. So England are 207 for 6 at the end of day 4. An hour to go. Alistair Cook on commentary. An hour to go, and they were still well behind the game. And the last thing Sir Alistair said before he went off mic was, "This is a big hour with Harry Brook and Joe Root at the crease. Can they get through to stumps? And if they could, then who knows? 200 to get on day 220, maybe 230 on day 5. Who knows? On a placid-looking pitch." And then, of course, you're only ever one ball away from an England collapse, aren't you? Another case of missed opportunities today for England. There was there's some good stuff to talk about for once, but once again, there's just a sense of what if, not just from today, but from this whole series. What if, because we're 4 wickets away from Australia winning the Ashes 3-0 inside 11 days.
What if, isn't it? And again, we've said it. How many times have we said it over the course of the last 10 days, Jon Norman? That the hope that kills you. We are.
I don't know. I think it's staying up all night that kills you. Hope is second.
I think it is. You can see by my eyes. I've been up all night watching it. I've enjoyed today. I really have. I have enjoyed today. There's a lot more positives come out today when watching in isolation than there probably has been in other days. We came back, didn't we? If you sort of broadly go over the timeline of what happened today, I woke up about 9 o'clock last night, getting ready for the game and thinking, right, come on, England bowlers have got to hit their straps. It's the only way we can stay in the game. We don't want to chase 600. I said 600, 650. They don't want to be batting it. They don't want them batting at tea time. We don't want Travis to be getting 250 as much as he's batted brilliantly. I've had enough of watching Travis bat now. And you're going, and England hit their straps. They did. More balls in an area, I think, consistently in this morning than they probably have done in the whole 10 days of Ashes cricket so far. So that was the start. They took some catches. They got 431, which was never, ever going to be, we were never going to chase anything that was going to be comfortable for us. And then, Crawley looked good. The best I've seen Zak Crawley bat. Joe looked good, comfortable again. Pat Cummins aside, it's sort of, I think somebody said I think it might have been Sir Alistair Cook, it's sort of Root's kryptonite, isn't it, Pat Cummins? And there was some good passages from Harry Brook. There were some brainless passages. And when we come to the sort of debrief and what's going to happen next, I think Harry Brook's name will come up quite a bit, but there were some good things that happened in the day. Line was going at 5.5 and over for 11 overs. England were comfortable, but again, what we say, John, we take some responsibility. Unfortunately, 1 brings 2, 2 brings 3, and England are, they look as though they capitulate. But there were some good things that happened today from England's point of view, and it was, I thought, a really enjoyable watch of Test match cricket when the crowd of over 200,000 in 4 days at the Adelaide Oval looked as though they were having a nice day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing what can happen with Test cricket when tickets are affordable. When you're not having to essentially buy a year in advance, spend over 100. Tickets for the Oval for next year, New Zealand, £125.
Ridiculous.
£125 for 1 day's cricket. Now, I bought my cousin. Thanks to a friend of mine at the Barmy Army, I managed to get a ticket for my cousin and his and his wife. They're going on honeymoon, and I've got him 2 tickets. I've got them both. It's a ticket each at the SCG. Okay, days 2 and 4. Actually, it's a 5-day pass, but they can only go in days 2 and 4. Do you know how much it cost?
But it was less than 125 quid a day.
It was $200 for 4 days.
Which is about, what's that, about less than £100?
Yeah, it's about £100, yeah. £100 for 4 days.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, the grounds are bigger. The grounds are bigger, right? So you know, you got to fill them. But when the tickets are coming in, and normal people go to cricket in Australia. Normal people do not go to cricket in England. Anyway.
And people will say, well, that's the problem with English cricket.
Well, it is one of them. It's elitist. It's
elitist.
You know,
entitlement.
It is. England. It is. It's totally exclusive. It's an exclusive club, and you know that, playing in it, and I know that, working in it. You don't get accents like yours or mine when you're in the corridors of power and the high seats. They don't come from a place like Ashington and Tooting. That's for sure.
Definitely not.
Anyway,
definitely not.
We've
tried, but unfortunately they won't let us in.
No, they won't. It's probably because I can't get this earpiece working. I need to be able to be more seamless on air, I think. Anyway, we're kind of digressing slightly. What are Harmy's thoughts on Ponting saying? This is from Register06. He's got in contact, or she's got in contact, via the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel. What are Harmy's thoughts? We don't get Ponting over here, which is a shame.
I know what it is. I was listening to Ponting.
That is, well, you shouldn't be. That is the worst batting I've ever seen. He said when Harry Brook tried to ramp Scott Boland and got it off the toe end of the bat. Zak Crawley was speaking after play to TNT and came across well. He was asked about the shot that Harry Brook got out to, and he said, I'd rather see that happening than someone getting out playing defensively, which is a kind of a stock phrase, isn't it? Because also I was thinking, well, your captain got out playing defensively, but that's just by the by. What did you think of the shot by Harry Brook? The reverse sweep, I think he almost, you got to be able to play the reverse sweep. It looked ugly though, didn't it? It looked really ugly. But what about Ponting's comments? Yeah,
the message that's on the chat is 100% spot on. I think it was at about, I'm trying to think what time it was, because flicking through the channels, it was probably about 4 o'clock this morning, 4:30 this morning, and I sat bowled upright. And I actually said, what are you doing, Harry? I mean, I was like instinct. When you shout your telly, I was like, what are you doing, Harry? England were going all right. They were plodding along nicely. Carey's up to the stumps. When Carey comes up to the stumps, you've got Carey where you want them. It means you're messing with Boland's head. You're messing with Boland's length. So if Carey comes up to the stumps, you're doing all right, Harry, here. You're going well. So I agree with Ricky. I didn't think it was the smartest play. The reverse sweep is different, though. The reverse sweep is different. I think the reverse sweep is you've got to look at the reverse sweep as against spin now, a bit like a cover drive or a clip through mid wicket. This is a shot they practice. This is a shot they play. It's not. It's a little bit higher risk than extra cover drive or a mid wicket. A flick through mid wicket, but it's still a shot. I think I think that a batter sees it as it's not as high risk as what it was maybe 20 years ago when it was frowned upon. I think the reverse sweep is a comfortable shot. Crawley's right, and I agree. I think Zak Crawley spoke. I put on our chat and said, "Can we get some of this?" Because I mean, some of the stuff that Zak said was very good. Fair enough, he fronted up. I mean, I was waiting on Danny Rubin, the media manager, or the security guard that filled the cameraman in. I was waiting on him to come out this morning. I thought he would have come out. But Zak Crawley got some runs. He fronted up, and it was a refreshing interview. He talked about how good Australia's bowlers were, how relentless they were, how it's the best attack that he's played against, and which sort of rewind back to what I was saying a second ago. When this is a relentless bowling attack, and when it is very, very difficult, and you are going well, don't give them a chance to get a foothold in the game. Keep doing what Travis Head did to us. Do what Mitch Stark did to us, which was grind us down. And that, I think, is what Ricky Ponting was trying to allude to when he was saying that's the worst bit of batting that he's seen from Harry Brook. And I can't disagree with a great man, because Harry Brook is getting the keeper up to the stumps. That tells you that he's coming out of his crease, he's messing up with what's going on in Scott Boland's head and his length. And that's a win-win for your batter. Now just stand there and play him from the crease, and play him the way you feel as though it is more comfortable. Don't take the big high risk, because the big high risk exposes the next man, and then the next man and then the next man. And what have England been very good at in this series? Losing wickets in clusters. Nathan Lyon's gone from going at 5.5 and over to bowling an absolute beauty to Ben Stokes because he was given the chance by batters not taking responsibility and going on and getting big runs.
Vader's father, 1248, says, going to the Boxing Day test on the first day and it's cost me $60. That's 30 quid.
30 quid.
But it is 100,000 seater stadium. But still, you know, Joe Root has played one good innings out of 6, and that was when Pat Cummins wasn't there. He shouldn't be escaping criticism. Great players perform on big occasions, and he has failed. That's from Harsh Ray 869. Let's talk about a couple of the batters because Ollie Pope, of course, well, he didn't score the runs he needed to score today. And who knows? I don't know if a batter has been dropped mid-series. I can't think of a batter that's been dropped by Brendan McCullum, Ben Stokes, mid-series. So we'll see what happens with Ollie Pope. He will feel a tad unfortunate insofar that it was arguably the catch of the series by Marnus Labuschagne, and a really good ball as well. But you know, he's had enough opportunities. However, if you ever look at the run scoring charts, Ben Duckett's below him, and so is Jamie Smith, although Jamie Smith has got an innings to go. If England had more than Jacob Bethel waiting in the wings, there'd be more than one batting change being pushed for, wouldn't there? It's just that I suppose something's got to be seen to be done. Maybe Brendan McCullum and Ben. Do you know what, by the way? Look, Jamie Smith might hit 150 tomorrow. I would actually drop Ollie Pope. I'd drop him to 6 or 7. And I'd give him the gloves. I think he's a better fit. I don't think he's ever been a 3. I've never saw him as a 3. I've been quite consistent about that. I think he's always done a job with the gloves. Seen him keep the gloves on 2 tours of New Zealand, and he's done so without a problem. And he's scored runs. And I think he's just better. He's better set up for 6 or 7. It's a bit like Ian Bell. I think there's similarities between Ollie Pope and Ian Bell. So that's what I'd do. Anyway, the point I'm getting to eventually, because I've been up all night, so apologies, is another poor shot from Duckett. He looks stuck. Jamie Smith looks stuck, but it looks like it's going to be Ollie Pope that carries the can heading to the MCG.
Yeah, it does look like Ollie Pope is going to carry it. There's a lot, again, another one. There's a lot in the sort of analysts of this question. The selectors need to have a look at themselves. In this tour and parties, I always thought this tour and party, and I'm not smart after the event, this tour and party was light. We spoke yesterday about Liam Dawson and a spin bowler. If you had any inkling that Sean Bashir was not going to be your man, or potentially you seen the pitfalls of a plan B or a plan C, you had to take a more experienced frontline spin bowler in a Liam Dawson, Jack Leach. I think you had to take an extra opening batter. That was, not taking someone like Dom Sibley, and Rob Key might throw it back at me going, come on, Harmy, you've seen Dom Sibley, the way he played the last time he was in. Yeah. But you looking at the Lions wasn't even our second best. You're taking 40 cricketers to Australia, and you're not taking battle hardened if somebody gets injured, if somebody gets out of form. This is the problem you've got when you have out of form or potentially injuries from the first team. You need somebody, battle hardened, reserves in players to come in, because the likelihood is they're going to come in under the utmost scrutiny, utmost pressure, because if it is for somebody who's not performed and failed, that means the team's not performing, and you're going to have to come into an environment which is probably head down rather than head up. So not having another opener, Bethel, we don't even know what he's like in red ball cricket, really, do we? We got a glimpse of him in New Zealand. He's gone and played for the Lions. He's got 50. That's it. He's only got 1 adult 100 in his whole career. That's unfair on the boy to bring him in now and on Boxing Day in front of 100,000 people. Come on. You've got England's most problem position in the last sort of 5 to 10 years, number 3. Even Joe Root doesn't want to bat 3, and he's our best cricketer ever. and you want to bring in somebody who's got one out of 100 in his whole career to play on Boxing Day in front of 100,000 people, and with Boland, Stark, and Cummins and Lyon. I mean, give the kid a chance. So there might be the argument here. Will Jacks gets runs in second innings? I mean, in tomorrow morning, then there's an argument that you might go with more, an older head in Jacks and maybe put Jacks up. I'm reluctant to do that, but that could be an option. But I think Ollie Pope, unfortunately, I think he's shot at this moment in time. And I agree with Duckett. I think Duckett's gone as well. I really do. I think he's stuck on the crease. They've got his number. They know where to bowl to him. They're executing their plans perfectly. They're taking their catches. And I think Ben Duckett's having a little bit of an issue as well. So, England having a 16-man squad with no backup wicketkeeper, proper backup wicketkeeper, no proper backup opener. And out of that 16, you've got bodies like Stokes, Wood, and Archer. I mean, it would have to go so well, and everybody getting through test matches. And we all know what this Ashes tour is like. My first Ashes tour week, we had about 25 players go and go. It just doesn't happen with 13, 14, 15 men. And that is the biggest thing that I think will come out of the Stokes McCullum key preparation towards Australia. And when people say it's a boys' club, that picking 16, I think they have a point.
Conrad McBad, our old friend, says, John, you'll be pleased to know that after 7 years and 85 wickets, Ajaz Patel finally got his first test wicket at home today. Well, thanks for getting in contact. I don't know which one it was, whether it was the first or the second, because I think he got 2 wickets today in the end. I don't know if you've seen it, Harmy, but he basically, I think he bowls a ball that's about on an 8th stump line. No, maybe not quite that wide, but essentially the batter essentially just tries to, help the ball past the stumps and gets himself into an almighty tangle. He takes his bat away and essentially I think he tries to kick the ball away, and then he tries to leave the ball, and then he manages to nutmeg himself and deflect the ball back onto his stumps. So it was quite a moment for Ajaz Patel. Do you know what? That reminds me of something. My kids were looking through my phone the other day, and they came across a video which I'd forgotten that I'd sent to Jared Kimber when we were commentating on the New Zealand-India match, or the India-New Zealand match, when Ajaz Patel took all 10 wickets. And I sent Jared this very excited message. I was down in New Zealand, and I sent him this video message, and my kids were absolutely creasing up because they found it. It was actually a bit embarrassing how excited I got when Ajaz Patel took all 10 wickets. But yeah, going back to today. So, I mean, this is the thing with Zak Crawley as well. So I think it was like 1 from 20 deliveries at the start of his innings, wasn't he? And it wasn't a 1 from 20 Sabina Park, trying to stay alive. Sabina Park 1998, trying to stay alive 1 from 20. It was a 1 from 20 where essentially I'm just going to block it out. Because it was Cummins and Stark opening up, and they were bang on it. I mean, Cummins with the wicket of Duckett in his first over. And so they were all over England. And I kind of watched it thinking, why don't you always play like this? I know it's a flat track. It's a day 4 track. A flat track is not doing a great deal. But actually, they're usually the tracks Zak Crawley goes all in on, right? Mm. So I was watching him. He looked completely in control of his game. In fact, he looked completely in control of his game right up until the point that, Nathan Lyon tempted him out of his crease and he was stumped. And I honestly, I sat there and I didn't have the answer. I just thought, why don't you always play like this, Zak?
Yeah, and the way you've just said it there, I think it was Langer, Finn, or Swan. One of them asked him on the TV at the end, and that's why it was such a good interview, because I think they were implying exactly what you were, John. Going, why on earth can you play? If we can play like that, why do you play like that all the time?
Yeah, why?
Why not? Was it a conscious effort to do that?
It must be a conscious. It must be. He's changed his game. They have changed their games. They have. Well, some of them haven't. But go on, tell me.
You know what he said? He said no. He said, this is how good this Australia bowl. He says, He says, I just seen it. He says, I played the way I play. I seen ball, hit ball. He said, but they played unbelievable. They were relentless. This is the best attack I've faced. I'm paraphrasing here and going what he said. He said, but it wasn't a conscious effort to go into a shell. It was literally, this bowling was very good. And I basically fronted up and played the way I would normally do. I thought his balance was better. I thought his head position was good. I thought his shot selection was very good. His execution, because his balance was good and his head was in the right place, was fantastic. And he also said, because when he was asked, like you just said there, I think Swanee asked him, he said about the dismissal, the first time you probably didn't look balanced. And he said, I can't believe I missed it. He says, I couldn't believe I got stumped. He says, I can't believe I missed it. He thought he was in the right place. So it was actually quite a refreshing interview from somebody who was actually in the game rather than coaches. I'm having another dig there at the coaches coming out. But it was good. He was honest. He said England are flat. He said, we thought we had a chance. The bowlers have been fantastic. X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. He was, at least he fronted up, and it was a good piece, and it's worth, it will be on social media later. It'll be worth listening to from somebody who's in there, somebody who's very experienced. I mean, he looks baby-faced. Joe Root looks baby-faced, and he's played 160-odd test matches. But Zak Crawley's played a lot of test matches, and everything we've said about Ollie Pope, England have got, I think, 4 cricketers that's played over 50 test matches. Crawley, Pope, Stokes, and Root. So they have to bear the brunt because they're the most experienced and they're the most senior. It looks like Pope's going to be out of the team. Crawley could have been at many stages over the course of his 60 test matches. And some of the other ones that England have backed, unfortunately, have just not been up to it against. Let's be fair. John, at the very start of the series, me, you, Jared and Bumble, Butch, Goffy, Matt Pryor, all our talkSPORT team, more or less said the same thing when we said it would be, how good will England batters be in Bazball against their biggest challenge? And the glaring difference between the two teams is Australia's bowling unit, because they've got Lyon and then the seamers. Fair enough, they've not had Hazelwood, but Stark carried and blew us away in the first 2 test matches. And when Stark was knackered, like Jofra and Stokes, who were knackered in this test match, you've got Cummins and Lyon bowling to stand up. England just haven't been able to be relentless as much as them. And that, I think, is the reason why England are going to lose the Ashes in 10 days.
Pat Cummins has just been ridiculous, hasn't he? And what is it about Joe Root? What is it? He must have nightmares about Pat Cummins. What is it about Joe Root's game that just doesn't set up when he's having to face Pat Cummins?
I think it's that corridor just outside the between 4th and 5th stump, where Pat's angle is unbelievable. It's a bit like Courtney Walsh's angle. It's a brilliant angle. Andrew Flintoff had a bit like that angle. Mine wasn't as sort of stand up. But if you're batting and you're on off stump, Pat Cummins comes into the stump. So the angle of the seam, I haven't got a ball here. The angle of the seam's coming towards you, sort of towards the off stump. And as it's coming towards the off stump, it just holds its line. And you don't want it to go big. As a bowler, you don't want it to go big, because when it goes big, looks great, flies through the keeper, and all the slips go, yeah, well bowled, yeah, fantastic. At the end of the day, really, it's a meaningless ball. But Pat has this ability. Courtney Walsh had this ability to move it slightly. And you're talking like what, width of a bat? Width of a bat's like that. You only want it to move that much, and it catches the outside edge of the bat. So once it moves that much, which it has done, and it's angling towards off stump, and you've got a vulnerability to push your hands at it, which modern day players do. Harry Brook does it a lot. Ollie Pope is always doing it. Zak Crawley does it a lot. Once you start pushing at the ball, and that's what I talk about technique in the modern day game, once you start pushing at the ball, you're in big trouble. And I think because Pat's angle, where he lands just left of mid crease on the bowling line, and his ability to angle it towards off stump and then just hold it a fraction. Even on a flat pitch, when the seam's dead, he has this ability to bring this angle into play. And that for me is where Joe's probably at his most vulnerable, because sometimes he's vulnerable with a ball going onto off stump. So because he's vulnerable with a ball going to off stump, he tries to get a little bit further out to cover that. But unfortunately, if it moves just slightly, he brings his outside edge into play. For me, it's a world-class bowler bowling at a world-class batter who's got a slight vulnerability in and around that sort of fourth, fifth stump. And Joe's had that. He's always had that. And you could see in his body language, and you could see at the end when he punched his bat, Joe probably knew as the ball was probably that far away from him that he knew he was going to nick it. It's like we talk about the centre forward knowing that the ball's going in the net before everybody else. The ball's going for 6 before anybody else. I think Joe, unfortunately, sees that little passage in slow motion and knows that he's nicked it. And unfortunately, there's always been a little air of vulnerability around that off stump for Joe Root when he faces a bowler who can just hold that sort of line off stump with the angle coming from the mid-crease area.
Well, I knew you were the person to ask. Toka5536 says, okay, tell the truth. Could any English player get a start in the Australian team? Okay, so we're putting together our composite 11 as it stands right now and thinking through. I mean,
yeah, there's probably
Crawley ahead of Weatherald after today, I guess.
It's 4.
Archer would get in. He'd be fourth seamer.
Archer and Boland are probably going head to head. Stokes and Green are going head to head. Root would probably have to bat. Well, in this game you would bat 4, but Root and Smith would be in the team, and then you get one of the openers in? But apart from that, no. Yeah,
I guess Root would get in ahead of Labuschagne, wouldn't he? He'd play Smith and Root at 3 and 4. Crawley probably ahead of Weatherald. Travis Head opening. Green's an interesting one. There's been a lot of angst about Cameron Green. He hasn't scored. I mean, 2 of the worst shots in the entire series across both sides were from him. You know, that leave when he was yorked by Cass at the Gabba, and then the chip to mid-wicket in the first innings here. It's his bowling that's keeping him in the team. But there's a lot of people who think Webster should come in for Cameron Green, and he looks well short. He looks well short at 4 or 5, wherever he's batting. 5.
But another one from Australia's point of view, just find a place for him, stick with him, and he'll reward you. And for me, he's too high at 5. He's a number 6. Get some more overs out of him because he's a hell of a bowler when he's on. He is a hell of a bowler when he's on. And I mean, John Moreau, I've always sort of said, I've always said about the human element to, cricket's not played, sport's not played by robots. In the 48 hours leading into this test match, it was all money, because the IPL auction was on. He was going to break records. He did break records. And he must have had that on his mind. He's still relatively young, but he's played quite a lot of test matches. For me, if I was in Australia's camp or close to Australia's camp, when you start picking sides, you go, Smith's not moving from 4. What you do ahead now is an interesting one, but Smith's not moving from 4 and Green's not moving from 6. Carey at 7, me 3 fast bowlers in line. And that's the basis of I'm going to start my selection of the team. Leave Green where he is at number 6. Don't mess about. Go into 3, go into 5. He's at a few different positions. For me, he's a number 6 who bowls 12 to 15 overs in innings. Complements something that Australia have not really had, an all-rounder. They've never really needed one because of McGrath and Warren bowling so many overs. And this bowling attack's phenomenal as well. But as this bowling attack gets older, I think you can prolong their longevity by having a bowler who could potentially bowl 12 to 15 overs in innings, and that would be Cameron Green. So keep him fit by doing that and batting him at number 6.
Let's hear from Darren Goff. Goffy I've got the producer jumping around. Goffey was on. Who was he on with? Was it Hawksby and Jacobs? He was on
Yeah,
yesterday.
he
He was on talkSPORT yesterday. Let's hear what he had to say.
I wish they'd just come out and say, look, they got it all wrong. They got the preparation wrong. It's not been right whatsoever. They didn't have nets actually at Perth. They played at Lilac-Hill. We talked about this in the build-up. The way they've gone about their interviews has been wrong. Criticising older players like Beefy and Gucci. It's not a great start to a series. If you're going to do that, you've got to make sure you're ready for it and you believe you're going to win, right? And then after that test match, he then says they overtrained. They're going to have a few beers and everything will be all right when we have a few beers and we have 7 days off. We had 5 days practice. Then they went on a 7-day break, which they all got great tans and played a bit of football on the beach. But they had to deliver this test match. And so far, again, we've been second best. Well, third best, haven't we? Let's be honest. And with 356 behind, still with 2 days left.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got to show some fight. And can we survive this? I'm sick of saying this, but look, again, we've got good players, but they look shot to pieces at the moment. It's a big, big game now. It's a big innings for 3 of them at the top there. Duckett, I think survives anyway. Duckett survives. He's had a good couple of years. But it's a big, big innings, this second one now for Crawley and Pope. Let's be straight about it. Those two have got to deliver in this second innings.
Yeah. If the worst comes to worst, Goffey, and it is 5-0 whitewash, you think Brendan will walk?
I think there'll be, look, a 4-year cycle, I believe anyway, on those jobs, right? DOCs, coaches, there's a 4-year cycle. And if it comes down to the Ashes and you're not getting the results you should hoping for, especially this one, this was like Australia's weakest team. You heard everybody say it. Yeah, we could be 3-0 down after 3 tests. I think a lot of them, the only one who survives for me in management would be Ben Stokes, wouldn't it? Let's be serious about it. Ben Stokes has proven himself to be an hero, a top leader, a top player. But you're only as good as your team. You know what it's like as a leader as well. And if you're losing, the leader's the one who takes the blame. In football, the manager gets the sack. In cricket, it tends to be the captain. But I think the captain survives this no matter what, because I think he's such a good leader.
As Goffey speaking with Alan Brazil on the Sports Breakfast, Regista06 says, will Baz and Ben be held accountable for the way this series has panned out, considering they have 100% control over anything and everything English cricket? Goffey says 4-year cycles. These guys took over in 2022, so we're just shy of that. But they came in after, not quite after the Ashes defeat in 21-22. It was after the West Indies series that was arguably even worse. I would kind of, people have got to be given an opportunity, right? And I don't see a natural successor to Ben, and I think that I'd like him to stay. It'd be interesting to see how Brendan goes about things. I think if he comes out with more daft comments like the overtrained one, and we know what he was trying to say, and we know he was trying to deflect criticism away from the team, okay? But for a guy that is usually bang on it and quite honest, he's kind of not reading the room, and he's kind of gone a little bit missing in this series and doesn't look like that person. So I think a lot will come down to how he fronts up at the end of this. And look, I know that there'll be a lot of people listening or watching this laugh at what I'm about to say, but 5-0 is different from 3-2. And they'll laugh because the idea of England winning the last 2 test matches, I know. I don't know what bowling attack we're going to be putting out there in Melbourne or Sydney. We'll talk about that tomorrow maybe. But a lot of it depends on how he comes across, I think. I do think there's a lot of goodwill in the game. I think that there's an understanding that they've made mistakes, but everybody is allowed to make mistakes. And England have got a terrible record in Australia. It's not like they've won the last 5 times they've been there. They've lost 4-0, 4-0, 5-0. That's in the last 3, right? So, it's a hard place to go. We understand that. But I think that how they go about things at the end of this will be key to what occurs with whether they stick around or not. And then the word key as well, Rob Key as well.
Yeah.
He's going to be factored in. And you know him well. He's an old friend of yours. He's going to be watching this, and he's going to be, you think it's bad for us, no one's going to be taking this as, no one's going to be hurting outside of the players and the coaching staff there. No one's going to be hurting more than Rob Key right now. Right. So let's be clear. These players and the people who are associated with the team, they care deeply. This is what it's all been about, and it is all unravelled horribly. So I don't know if I've answered Register 06 question. Harmy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably coming tomorrow a little bit more vocal, boisterous, and poisonous, I would imagine, from all parties, not just from me, from Goffy and from talkSPORT. It'll be coming from, the arrows will be coming flying in from everywhere, for Key, for Stokes, McCullum. McCullum's the one for me. He's the one for me that I think is the only one that I would not go the next part of the journey with if I was in charge here, because I think he's brainwashed Key and Stokes and how the coach wants his teams to prepare. I think he's brainwashed his players in such a way that he wants his batters to perform. And I think he has done it in such a way which is looking at it through his eyes. And I had this sometimes with Kevin Peterson, that Kevin Peterson would look and go, well, why can't you do that? Well, we can't do that because we're not you. And I think Brendan McCullum wants these batters to bat like Brendan McCullum battered. And Brendan McCullum made mistakes. Brendan McCullum got out in kamikaze ways. But these guys aren't as good, probably, hand-eye coordination as what Brendan McCullum is. So, and this is what I was talking about yesterday. I think he's a mentor, not a coach. A coach is somebody who has the preparation nailed down, every single thing looked at to make sure we've got a plan A, a plan B, and cover every eventuality that can go right and go wrong over the course of an 8-week period, 5 test matches, ridiculous heat, flat pitches against a good side. Now, like I said earlier, having 16 men with Wood, Archer and Stokes' body in that, no spare keeper, no spare opener, that's not a big tick in the box. So I agree with Goffy. Stokes, for me, goes nowhere. I think Rob Key has changed the way we look at Test match cricket because of his outlook after that disastrous part of the West Indies and what happened before through the COVID era, where and it's hard because people will say, oh, he's your mate, and you're sticking up for him. Like Phil Tufnell was sticking up for Brendan McCullum yesterday on the BBC. And they are close and they're good mates. But I think when it comes to the coach's point of view, you have to have the preparation nailed down. You have to have it. And I think the coach sometimes has to be detached from the players. And you can be, I think, listening to top managers, you listen to Alexa Klopp and Guardiola. I spend a lot of time listening with Eddie Howe. And Eddie Howe is very, very good and very close to his players, but he's not their best mates. He's not. He'll protect them. He'll look after them. He'll make sure that nobody's throwing stones at them from the outside. But he's not the best mates on the inside. He has to leave them out. He has to make tough decisions. And Brendan McCullum, I don't think, is making tough decisions. And because we're making the same mistakes. We made the same mistake for 3.5 years with some of our batters. And that, for me, is why I don't think the coach can carry on this journey. I like Baz. He's a great man, fantastic player. And I think under a different circumstance, working with a top coach, he would be an asset to English cricket. But I think as the leader, I don't see him as a coach. I see him as more of a mentor. And I think some of these players need coaching. I really do. And that, from a selection point of view, I think that's very, very hard to take, because you shouldn't need coaching at the international level. But when you've got a number 3 whose bat plane's coming from third slip to mid-wicket trying to hit a straight ball, and your opening batter who's 6'5", I know Zak batted brilliantly today, but his head keeps falling over. These things, there's a lot of same mistakes happening technically with our players. You're going, a good coach would be sorting this out. Duncan Fletcher, and Andy Flower, even someone like Peter Moores, they would see the pitfalls and the technical deficiencies that England's teams that have been over England's batters over the last 3 years. And I think that's why I'd probably go with Stokes carrying on, definitely. I think Rob off the field has worked, a good job. But I think, but people will say McCullum's your man, so you sort of fall on the sword because of he's your man. But I think I don't think this team. I think this team needs a better technical coach than what Brendan McCullum is.
Justin Langer and Jason Gillespie, two mentions in the chat facility, and your decision to pick Archer ahead of Scott Boland has not gone down particularly well with hundreds of people. I would say too many to list in the chat facility.
Got 40 and a 50.
Yeah, well, he could bat at 6.
Yeah, he could bat at 6. Yeah. Like I said, it was a 50-50. Boland's bowled brilliantly. But Archer, to be fair to Archer's bowled well as well. He's got 5-ers.
I think Archer's, he has bowled well. He's bowled well and he's batted well, yeah. Scott Boland arguably produced a spell of the Ashes after lunch on day 2 in Perth.
Yeah, he did. Mm-hmm.
We've only got a few minutes left in the show. Tomorrow, by the way, we're going to go all in. I know a lot of people are asking us to talk about what next, player changes and, how should the team shape up. I mean, I even had a little snooze trying to work out what my bowling lineup is going to be at the MCG. I don't know what that says about, me. I put myself to sleep thinking about cricket, but essentially... England have got some massive decisions to make if and when they go 3-0 down in this series tomorrow. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about where now for Bazball. I think we know where Bazball's gone. It disappeared. It died on day 2 in Adelaide. There's some articles out there, and there's some people saying that it died earlier on in the series. Maybe they're right, but I think that the way they went about things on day 2, for me, that was it, the final nail in the coffin of Bazball. But final comments today, looking back at day 4 at Adelaide, Harmy. Josh Tongue, I thought again showed he's got something about him. I would have played him at the Gabba. Bryden Carse was on a hat trick. I don't think Bryden Carse should ever open the bowling for England again. No. And I think he should probably step aside for Gus Atkinson at the MCG. But I did say we'll talk about that tomorrow, so we will. And then, of course, the way that Australia batted, brilliance from Travis Head. Alex Carey again. I think he was out for 72, which was wasn't that the score he should have been out for in the first innings?
Yeah, 72 or 74, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was 72. So they batted well, and then just a feeling of what ifs again. Today's play was the kind of day I was expecting to see 4 or 5 times across the course of the first 3 Test matches. Narrowly going England's way. Competitive, closely fought, session here, session there. And unfortunately, it's a day that has shown up this Ashes for what it is, really. A real disappointment, because tomorrow, on day 11, it's all going to be over. And it could have been so different. It could have been so different if only England had held their nerve in that afternoon session at Perth, maybe.
Yeah, could have been so different. The Josh Tongue one, I think he's been very good in this Test match, and it comes back all the way back to the very start, and a bit like what I'm talking about with Brendan McCullum. When you talk about preparation, he got better as the game's gone on because he's getting more overs in match situations under his belt. Bryden Carse the same. Do you know what I mean? We can criticise Carsey as much as you want, but he's got the most wickets in this England team by quite considerable distance. And Jofra Archer looks knackered, and I think a lot of it looks knackered because the miles in your legs. So all the arguments we had before the very start have borne to fruition, and I think, like you said, we would like to have seen an Ashes series over the course of the last 10 days look like what it did today. But unfortunately, England, they've just not been up to the task, and that is the real sad thing, is that Australia are throwing loads and loads of punches. In England, I think it's been a heavyweight against the middleweight, and the middleweight has really struggled to bop around the ring and throw a punch back. because I think it's just been smothered by very, very good bowling from either end. And batters who have took responsibility, whether it's Travis Head belting it at the start, or Alex Carey valuing his wicket in the middle, or even Mitch Stark, again, who was not out, who has valued his wicket at the end. We've had glimpses, and they've had a team unit. And unfortunately, we're going to lose the Ashes in 10 days.
Harmy, we'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for joining us here on the Following On podcast feed. If you're listening via podcast on talkSPORT 2, on DAB radio, or on the talkSPORT app, or on the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel, always great to have you along and giving us your feedback on the chat facility. We'll go through more of those questions. We'll try and give a few answers. And we'll be back tomorrow following play after day 5 at Adelaide. At least we've got day 5. Wow, that would have taken that at Perth. Either way, thanks for joining us here on Following On Ashes Inquest.